Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm excited to have Trey Bilbrey joining. We worked together for a brief period of time, but Trey's got a really interesting story working on the offensive side, has red team experience, and an expert when it comes to purple teaming and controls validation. So some topics we don't cover a lot, but it's going to be an interesting show. And a lot of the listeners are people that are trying to get into cybersecurity or make a move into different areas. So I really think what you share today will be great to be able to let them see that there's other options that they may not be aware of in cybersecurity. So welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, good sir. Yeah, I think we can definitely give them some insight and a look at a new way of doing things. I think it'll be fun.
Well, great. So why don't we start by you introducing yourself and kind of sharing your hacker origin story.
So for those of you that have never heard my voice or seen my face before, hey, I am Trey. On Twitter, I go by the handle at tcraft. You can find me out there on all the socials. I'm not a very hidden person anymore. My background is really varied. So I got my start in the Marine Corps. I joined right out of high school because I was one of those kids for like undiagnosed ADHD. I knew I wasn't going to college. There was no way that was ever going, because I barely graduated with a 2.0. I had missed more days than I attended. I was one of those kind of students. I was like, you know what? I'm going to join the Marines. I don't want to go to college. I can't afford to go to college, and who wants to sit in a classroom anyway? So joined the Marine Corps, and I went in to do data communications. I was like, I'm going to pick something cool. Computers are a big thing. I mean, I grew up I'm a 90s baby, so this is all new technology, and I was watching it advance. I was like, I'll do that. Sure, the military's got to do cool stuff with computers. Well, long story short, I ended up spending like half my career in a classroom or teaching. So I ended up kind of going to college the roundabout way anyway. But yeah, I started off doing infrastructure and data systems management. So I was building networks, breaking networks, standing up like enterprise domains in the middle of fields, working with some SATCOM for a bit, radios, a little bit of everything. Basically, in the Marine Corps and in our units, what it came down to was, if it has an IP, it has to be data's problem. So at that point, basically anything that was networked was something we had to work and manage. So that's really where I started, was doing that kind of stuff. And I got lucky as I was kind of riding this wave. I joined in 2008, came up on my first re-enlistment. And right about that time was when the whole cybersecurity like boom happened, that like end of 2012, beginning of 2013 range. And the Marine Corps went, well, we've got this new thing called cyber. You want to move to that? You seem to be doing okay here. Well, sure, why not? Jumped over into cyber. So I went from doing basic IT, net admin, sysadmin, help desk work. Now all of a sudden I'm cyber. Well, what does that mean? Turns out we didn't know. So we kind of had to figure it out on the fly. And that was part of what a good chunk of my career was after I'd made that lateral movement, was to figure out what is cyber for the Marine Corps? How do we train people, and how do we grow a cyber mission force? So I did that for a while, and again, hit another wave right around 2016. The Marine Corps went, okay, I think we've got a handle on this whole cyber thing. We get what's going on, but we need to be more expeditionary. We need to be fast, agile, be able to move, not big and clunky and carrying a COC everywhere we go. And they came up with this whole concept of cyber protection teams. So think of it as like a traditional unit that you would deploy, and they would run missions, do those kind of things, but for cybersecurity, for communications, that kind of a deal. And the opportunity popped up. So I moved from what I was doing in cyber to that, and spearheaded running a team that was doing defensive and offensive cyber operations. And that was fun. That was some of the most fun I've had ever. The mission sets we were doing were really unique. I was getting to work with tons of new tools, applications, just hardware, things that you wouldn't typically see. Did that until around 2019. And throughout my career, I did the deployment cycle, did all that fun stuff that everybody typically does. And I ended up getting sick. as that happened, it kind of caught back up with me in 2019. So starting to get a little older, starting to get close to that 30 range, my check engine light's coming on, and then the illness flares up. So long story short, the Marine Corps ended up medically retiring me and pushed me out. And my exit date was basically a week before COVID lockdown happened. That was my introduction to normal life again. I was fortunate enough that with that weird hurdle, I had also gotten given a whole new kind of route to go, because at the same time, from some of the previous missions and things I had done, an organization that I had worked with prior at the Army Corps of Engineers had reached out because they knew what was going on with me. They had spots to fill, and they're like, hey, do you want to come do the cool red stuff you were doing, but for critical infrastructure? I was like, for sure. Who's going to say no to that? So that really kind of cemented me into the red path for a while, and I dove into it from there. I started doing the critical infrastructure piece. It was fun. I enjoyed what I was doing, but I was kind of not feeling the way it was. And I think a lot of it had to do with just the way the world was in 2020, 2021, right? A lot of policies and things were gray at best, or people weren't sure what was going to happen day to day. Are we still going to have jobs? Are we going to be forced out? Like, so many different little issues were popping up. I was like, okay, I think my time for government service is probably done. And you'll notice a repeating theme for me is I've got very lucky waves that I hit right as I need to make a life choice. Some kind of opportunity pops up. So right about the same time that I made that choice to, it's probably time for me to leave the Corps of Engineers, Hack the Box came around. And they're like, hey, we're building this thing called Academy. You've got teaching experience. You've done curriculum development, right? Yeah. They're like, and you've done red and blue stuff? I was like, yeah. They're like, you want to come build content for us? Sure, why not? I've been playing on your platform already anyway. I like it. I'm a champion for it. I talk about it all the time. Why would I not want to produce something of my own and give back to the community that way and get paid to do it? That's the best case scenario, right? So I made that transition. I did that for a little while, and from there hopped into consulting because I still hadn't found that itch, or found a way to scratch that itch that I had. Got into consulting, and then all of that led to, where we first met. So the stuff with SCYTHE came around. I had met Bryson, Chris Peacock, and a bunch of others. I really liked what they were doing. I liked the whole concept of purple teaming and bringing it together, because it's one thing I had talked about a lot. We talk about community so much in cybersecurity, but we're really all still working and living in silos. And I saw this as a way to break those silos down. So I made the switch. So now here I am. I'm doing purple teaming full time, running engagements. I'm building threat emulation plans, just having fun. And it really all comes down to, I just made a choice, didn't look back, and kept riding the waves. What I would say, if I gave something truly back to the people that listen to you and that are trying to get into this field, it would be that it doesn't matter. You don't need to know your path right now. Don't even bother to try to figure that out, because whatever you think it's going to be is probably not what it's going to be. Try stuff. It's such a huge field. It's okay to not know. Dive in, do something new, see if you like it. Worst case scenario, you find out you hate it and you go do something else. But there's so many different opportunities and different niches in cybersecurity that you can do that over and over again. Just continuously learn and grow. It's going to make you better for it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about cyber compared to like IT, because say in IT, you're a database administrator. Now you want to be get into Cisco and networking and stuff. You're basically having to learn all over again. You really don't get to carry that experience over. But, with cyber, it's like if you go over here, you work in GRC, you're doing audit, but then you move over to offensive security, you're doing pen tests. Some of that stuff is going to help you out. You're going to be able to work better with auditors, and it may even give you an edge over someone that doesn't have that background, but it's really nice the way it builds. And like you said, if you get bored with it, you can move on to something else. So,
Oh, yeah, that's a great example too. Like just having that inherent knowledge of GRC and how all of the policy and the stuff that's coming out is going to affect the way we do business. Now, you as a red teamer could turn around and go, look, this is what I did. This is why it's a problem. And this policy is the implementation of either why it's really a problem and what you need to do to fix yourself. So you were able to make those connections that I've seen quite too frequently a lot of people in our field can't make, because they pocketed themselves really early And that's just the route they've always gone on.
Yeah. So one of the things, especially with your background in education, so if someone's new starting out, they want to get into offensive security, what would you recommend?
Honestly, this might be a little bit of a spicy take for your crowd. My personal opinion and answer, again, these are my opinions. They do not apply to my employer or the organization or any organization that I help run for that matter. But don't. Don't. Make it a hobby. I 100% believe the only reason I am mildly successful in red teaming in the whole offensive field as a whole is because of all of my time spent building environments, managing enterprise domains, seeing how they function, seeing how users and the common behaviors are, then turning around and defending those very same environments and trying to deal with it. Without that experience of how does it work? How do I protect it? I wouldn't be nearly as good at how do I get in? How do I show people the flaws? Because now I know them. It's inherent. It's a part of my nature. And that's a really hard concept to grasp on the back end. I see it a lot. I deal with a lot of college students down here in Tampa through some mentorship programs and the K-12 stuff we do with nonprofits, where that's their thing. Right out of high school, they want to go into offensive security or they want to get a degree in cyber. And in my head, I'm going, that's awesome. Like, I'm going to help you get there. But I wholeheartedly believe that we do our young people a disservice, that we're really doing them a disservice because we're saying, hey, there's this cool new field, cyber. You don't need to know anything prior. Come into it. You're going to get paid 6 figures and it's going to be, that's not the case. Like, yeah, you might get a couple certs, your A+, maybe a Sec+ or something. If you're really ambitious as a college kid and you're naturally curious and you kind of hack your way through it, you'll probably come out with an OSCP or something like that. I've seen it a lot now. A lot of these kids are getting an OSCP before they even understand basic networking. I don't know why our field and why people and the seniors in it don't see the disconnect here. That how are you supposed to effectively, 1, attack a network, 2, explain to the customer or your employer or whoever it is you're doing it for why there's a problem if you don't understand the inherent architecture. So roundabout to answer that question, what would I recommend to people getting into offensive security first is don't. Go spend 6 months a year working in a help desk. Go see what they put up with and see why people balk at your recommendations all the time when you give them more work by messing with the environment. See why they look at you like you have 3 heads when you ask them a weird question on a trouble ticket. If you understand how the ecosystem works, how these enterprises truly operate, it's going to make you so much better. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And I'll stand on that hill till I die. I'll fight anyone for it.
That's good advice. Because one of the things too that some people just want to jump in right into trying to learn the hacking stuff, but kind of you mentioned you need to understand the technology and to defend the technology to kind of be able to break into it. So that's, when you think about traditional educations, there's prerequisites that you have to attain or go through before you start taking other courses and stuff, and you're not going to be able to understand it. So,
yeah. And it really feels like our collegiate system is doing it a disservice because a lot of those prerequisites aren't there right now. And at best, it might be like Sec+. I've seen a lot of programs that are a cybersecurity degree. So the focus is our field, having their kids do a capstone of CIS. Why?
Yeah.
1, it's so far reaching, like even if they pass the exam or they pass the test, they can't hold that CIS for at least another 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we making that the focus, being a moonshot? Why not bring it back to earth and make it something like getting your CCNA, learning like even CCNA security, or getting the understanding of how architectures work, how to secure them, make that reach, or even like the basic skills and competencies you need to work in a SOC or a help desk or any of those places. I think if we could do that, we solve a lot of these problems we're hearing about, like the whole hiring shortage and lack of people. There's not a lack of people.
Yeah.
We're failing to train our people, and there's a lack of realistic expectations.
And it kind of goes back to your background and kind of where I came from. I started out as a sysadmin before I got into cybersecurity, and being a sysadmin was the best thing I could do for any of that, because if you're on the blue team side, you're having to deploy some kind of security software or deal with firewalls and intrusion detection systems. You kind of need to have kind of a knowledge of networking and operating systems to be able to do those type of things. So only makes sense that you would do that, trying to learn cyber.
That's a perfect example right there, thinking about firewalls. So let's say you're cool elite hacker kid, right? You manage to get in, you popped a shell somehow, you've got C2 in the environment, and you do a write-up about that in your report. Oh, we were able to establish C2 communications. This is bad, very bad. You need to go ahead and just disable a bunch of ports. And you recommend them to block things like 80, 443, like mail, like DNS. It's like, well, that's what we're using for C2. Why would you leave it open? Well, because that's the only way networks function. If you turn all of those off, you're secure. Nobody's getting in. Nothing's getting out. So it's a frustrating thing, and I've seen it time and time again. I really wish we could do something about it as a whole. But yeah, that was a great example of it.
Yeah, it's just getting people on the same page. And I think one of the things I see that organizations miss out on is you take, there's some executives or management types, and I'm not saying this is everyone, but for instance, your CEO and founder of your company doesn't have a hard time finding technical talent because he's part of the community. And I think a lot of these people do themselves a disservice if you're not connected with, kind of that practitioner community, because otherwise, if you're just going to the CISO conferences and meetings and not really associating with practitioners, it's a little bit harder to find that kind of talent. And I think you really won't know as much of what you're looking for if you're not involved in kind of immersing yourself into that community.
Yeah, you end up getting stuck in that weird C-level echo chamber of, well, they tell me I should do the things because stuff is bad, but it costs money and we don't want to spend money, so I'm not doing the things and I'll accept the risk. So it's a weird situation right now.
So how was it switching from doing kind of the red teaming and offensive security going over to purple teaming? Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you'd actually worked with some purple teaming before you transitioned over to SCYTHE. But kind of how was that transition, and how are you enjoying purple teaming?
Moving into it full time was probably the best decision I've made of my career, because I feel at home. It scratched that itch for me. I had a similar kind of decision and thing happen when I moved from blue to red. And the long story short of that in that wave is someone went, well, who knows how to use Meterpreter? I'm like, well, I played with it before, and that's how I got into red teaming. With purple, it was so much easier. There was no I wasn't unsure about the process or the ask or what I was doing. I was going, cool. I'm taking this thing that I really loved, that was a hobby that became a job, breaking into things, seeing how they function, seeing if I can make them do stuff they're not supposed to, and combining that with what's truly really needed is the defensive posture, being able to help people improve and fixing one of the, in my opinion, biggest issues we have in the field is collaboration and forcing it. So now I'm taking this really cool thing I like to do, this really necessary thing, and what I believe we all should be doing, and just sandwiching it together. I couldn't be happier. It's been a fun transition. It wasn't hard at all, and I feel like I've hit a really good stride in it.
It seems like to a degree, because I know like with true red teaming operations, sometimes things are slow and can get boring. So it seems like with purple teaming, you're getting to do things a little bit more often instead of these long planned out engagements, that you're doing that thing more frequently and able to get even better at it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're not spending weeks at a time standing up an aging infrastructure anymore. I'm not having to do that long grind, hoping someone clicks a phishing link or hoping I can find a bypass somewhere or things like that. It's like, now I have the opportunity to celebrate the wins for the customer with them, but still move on and accomplish the objectives, right? It's cool. You're worried about initial execution. Let's see if these payloads pop. Do they all pop? Awesome. Good job. We know your tooling, at least from this aspect, is working right. Now let's put something in place, allow us this implant, and let's see how you stack up against the rest of the kill chain or whatever threat we happen to be emulating. Let's see how you function there. So best case scenario, one, you get instant gratification as the blue team because you know, hey, our thing worked. We did something right. That's cool. Worst case scenario, you find out, oh, we really thought this EDR we're using was going to stop everything and it stopped nothing. What's wrong? So now it's an immediate feedback loop. You're not waiting 30, 45, 60 days for some report that odds are your team's not going to read anyway, so you never know there's a problem. Now you have that instant feedback loop. And oftentimes what we tend to do, especially in our purple team engagements, is on the fly find out, okay, well, what's the root cause? Why did that fail? Why are your tools not working or alerting or doing anything? And no, it's because some update pushed an obscure thing and unchecked one box here and put you in monitor mode. No one knew it happened because no one's in there daily. It's simple stuff like that, you know? And it sounds super non-technical, but usually the majority of the fixes and the wins that I can help customers find are often very non-technical. It's someone overlooked something, someone forgot something, or somebody bought something new and put it in place and didn't let everybody else know. It's stuff like that. And this is the better path, I think, for people when they're thinking about testing. And the way I get to deliver testing, it's so much more fun because I get to work with the teams directly. I'm not sitting up pen testing at night because they don't want me pen testing during the day. I'm not trying to run an engagement by myself or with a group of 2 or 3. I'm having fun with my friends. I'm helping somebody else improve. And I get the instant gratification myself of seeing the change, seeing their security posture get better right there on the spot. And they get that too, which I think is a very rare thing right now in cyber. A lot of it is doom and gloom and crap. There's another CVE. Crap, there's another exploit. Hey, this person we partner with just got ransomware. Do we have any trust relationships with them? Do we need we're always in crisis mode. So any chance that one, I can get that dopamine fix and feel good about what I'm doing, but also see it happen for that customer or for that team, it's just a great day, you know?
Yeah. And, it's one of the things that I'm a big fan of purple teaming is just for the fact when you figure the regular cycle of pen tests, you run a pen test, red team engagement, you remediate, and these cycles take a while to mature. But whenever you can take out certain attacks out of the hands of threat actors, you can kind of go a long ways of helping that security posture. And I kind of see one of the things the fulfillment you get, because a lot of times as offensive security professionals, you go in there, you perform the pen test, you give them the test, but you're giving them the data that they need to go in and try to remediate, but it's not like an immediate impact compared to purple teaming.
And very often, depending on the firm, if they're a little looser with their morals, they're maybe not giving you the whole picture either because they know they're coming back next year and they want to have an easy win, have a way in or something like that. It is, in the end, it is still driven by the dollar, but I think we can do better going down this purple path than the traditional pen testing route currently.
So in a role like yours doing the purple teaming, part of it is having that red team or offensive understanding, but to really excel in what you're doing, people need to be also detection engineers such as yourself. Is that correct?
To an extent, yeah. I would say more than being a detection engineer working in purple, they need to have a foundational knowledge of the tools and the processes that enterprise environments utilize. So do you understand how SIEMs work? Do I need to know how to write my own alert queries in KQL? No, I don't, because there's so many tools for that. Do I need to understand the basis of how indexes are set up in those SIEMs and where data comes from, all our potential log sources? Yeah, that stuff is a little more prevalent. Having that foundational baseline of what's going on behind the scenes is really what's more important. The detection engineering piece comes with time, especially if you have the holistic background, because now I know, hey, from a red perspective, I did this thing because of X. How would I find myself? What indicators am I leaving behind? What would I look for? That's the biggest piece of it. And I would say the other part of it is people have to really step back and think about what they're doing. If you're a one-man army, if you're trying to do it all, you're destined to fail. Surround yourself with good people. That's the biggest part of it. Is I've partnered now with a friend. I pulled one out of a prior team. He's working with me now, who his primary focus through his whole career has been purely blue. It's been on defensive operations. He's an awesome detection engineer, blows me out of the water. He's got stuff in the back of his head that I probably will never even learn again. It's crazy how smart he is and how quick he is with this kind of stuff. But you pair me together with my delivery, my red background, and my holistic knowledge, and him and his understanding of infrastructure and defensive operations and detection engineering, smash us together, and it's perfect. We've got everything we need to help that customer right then and there in that time. And I think that's probably one of the best things I could tell people is you got to rely on your friends. We're all in this together. These threats are working as teams. They're crews. They're all talking, they're all communicating. Why aren't we doing the same?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So what all goes into kind of planning a purple team operation?
So it's like running a pen test with extra steps. So all of the traditional things you would think about when you see like starting up for a pen testing, statements of work, scoping documentation, making sure you have the right amount of people, you've got your insider, trusted agent, all of that kind of stuff in place. Sorry, my breathing is not agreeing with me. I'm still trying to catch up off the COVID. So you got all of that normal mix that you get from pen testing, but now we're trying to bring people into the mix too. It's no longer, okay, just give me my SAL, give me my scope, let me go do my work. It's no. We're sitting together. We're going in this room on this day together. I'm sharing screen, you're sharing screen. We're going to make this happen. Or we're doing it over a Zoom call, things like that. So now the bigger lift is, how do I get the right stakeholders and technical people in the room at the same time? That's the hurdle. And it's been honestly a little easier than I thought it would be. But there's been a few hiccups here and there where we've had people come to Purple Team engagements where they're like, yeah, cool, like our C-suite's here, but we didn't bring the security analyst that can look at any of the logs or make exceptions and anything. Like, well, then I'm just kind of throwing threats at your network and nobody's watching. Like, so like every now and then you'll see something like that. But for the most part, yeah, it's pen test with extra steps. Bring people together, make sure they understand the threat, what we're trying to look at when it comes to behaviors, the potential, say, false positives or the potential gaps we could find. Talk through them, tabletop it, say, this is the threat. Here's what we think we'll be able to accomplish. Where within this do you think you guys will stop us? Where do you think you'll see us? What do you think, if any of this, won't be caught or detected at all? And once we can sit down together, work through that, talk through that, then it's time to put our money where our mouth is, right? And it's not just me anymore. It's not, can the pen tester get in? It's, are we doing our job right? Are we really watching those logs? Are we rolling logs up at all? Because now they're questioning the whole way they do business. They're questioning their processes, their procedures. Who are they supposed to alert when things happen? I always like to bring in like kind of probing questions. Think of it like sprinkling in a little bit of a tabletop exercise. Like, hey, if an incident happens in this line of business, who do you need to alert first? If you lose access to X, Y, and Z, is this considered critical for you guys as an organization? Like little things like that. Now they're just reevaluating the whole way they do business. So if we can bring all of that stuff together, that's really what makes an awesome Purple Team engagement. The way you round it out comes down to the same thing, regardless of what you're doing in cyber. It's debrief and improve, right? Debrief, what can we fix? Test again. Debrief, did we do it? No. How do we fix it? Try again. And it's always cyclical. It's a never-ending game, a cat and mouse. We have too much technology out there now. We're using too many things for all super accessible. So this is going to be the never-ending story of who done it and what did they do.
Yeah, it's, really, it's just kind of a good culture to have within an organization to begin with, to have that Purple Team kind of culture, the collaboration.
It really is. And I've never really ran into any pushback yet, which is really surprising. When I was doing red teaming and that kind of stuff, I was getting pushback all the time. Every little thing I wanted to do, they're questioning it. I had to go to a review board, things like that. Purple teaming, they're already in the loop and we're giving them here's what I want to do. Here's the potential cause and effect. This is why we're doing it. And they're going, oh, okay, let's see what happens. So it's been a lot smoother. It's a lot easier from the people perspective. And most orgs are like that. And I've seen they really enjoy it. They're getting to watch now they're getting something most C-level never get, right? They're getting to see their teams operate, see how they work, see what they're actually doing with that $ they spend on them every year. And it's eye-opening. On the flip side, the other organizations that are a little more passive or standoffish, you can really see it because they're like, as soon as we do something and they don't see it, then they go, oh, wow, so there is value here. They found a problem, but then they really you can just watch them hit their chair when not only do they notice there was a problem, but then they see us in real time provide and fix and have a solution. Now they're like, whoa, okay, so there's the value. We were able to identify something, find the root cause, fix on the spot. And now I don't have to wait for a 30, 60, 90-day window on potentially maybe implementing a new fix with something quick and easy. And it potentially just saved us millions because now that hole's not there. And that's a lot of the way that people look at it. And it's fun.
Yeah, and kind of a more immediate return on investment than some other assessments.
Yeah, and I kind of say it jokingly is we're all in it for the dopamine fix, right? Or you're trying to chase that happy molecule. So if you can get that win, even if it's just a little bit every day, it makes it better. Makes you want to keep coming back. And for them, now they're getting that little dopamine hit saying, okay, my money is well spent. This isn't just another report. This isn't just my guy is getting added 40 hours of extra work to their work week that they're never actually going to get to. It's overall just better for everyone, in my opinion.
So what are your thoughts on cyber threat intelligence as far as purple teaming goes and for security organizations in general? How important is it?
So it's one of those things that it's a mixed bag. Do you need to build out a whole J2? Do you need your whole little like intel team just purely doing that and scrolling the dark web and all that kind of craziness all day, every day? No. Most orgs, one, can't afford it. Two, wouldn't know how to source the expertise. What you realistically probably need for that true like threat-informed defense before you even think about CTI is, do I understand the hardware we run in our infrastructure? Do I understand who owns our infrastructure, where it's at? Do I understand the softwares and the behaviors of my employees, of the people that we have in our environments? Do I understand who's coming in and out, vendors, things like that, where my updates come from? If you understand all of that stuff, like taking a look in the mirror, if you can model yourself, understand everything that's in place, then it's time to start thinking about CTI, because now you can go, okay, who's a potential threat to me? And then also from the CTI perspective, you understand what hardware you're running. If you've actually done an asset inventory, you know what they are, the models, potential revisions they're operating on currently, all kinds of different information. Now you can easily take that and diff it against the latest dump of CVEs, right? And say, hey, there's some cool stuff against Palo Alto. Are we running Palo Altos? No, cool. Then I don't care. Next thing, and move on. And it really streamlines the process. You're no longer looking at just this explosion of what's today's vulnerability. It's, do I care? No, move on. Next thing. Let's keep fixing things. Let's get better. Once you can do that, now it's time to really start thinking about CTI, analyzing the threats. But now you know yourself, you've got to determine what that threat is and who would want to target you. Who cares enough about the organization that you are? Are you working in financials? Are you working in the government? Maybe you're in the supply chain of someone else that would actually more actively be targeted than you. So all of those kind of different things, who has motive, who has care? Are you in a kind of a spicy region at this moment in time? All of these different little metrics come into play in determining who would be a potential threat for you. Now that you've determined who you are, what's a potential threat, now you can take that, smash it together, and start playing this game we call CTI. And really what that comes down to is just being well-read, being able to correlate data very, very quickly. And there's plenty of different projects and ways. Everyone's got their own way of doing things. But I like to think of it more as like threat-informed defense. Am I worried about every threat that's out there? Am I worried about trying to memorize who they are, what their behaviors are, and who they've targeted in the last 6 months? No, not really. Because if I'm working in oil and gas and they're targeting financial or education, what does it matter? It doesn't matter what they're doing. I need to be more worried about someone that would actively target me. So we narrow our scope. Now that we have that, it's an easier game to play. It takes less people, processes, time and money, right? Is what it boils down to. And you could easily accomplish with one or two people what I think most people do with entire teams, but that's just because their teams have no direction. They're just told to find the things, tell us what stuff's doing. That's not a very good direction, right?
Yeah, those some really good points on knowing what hardware and stuff you have, because, just like you said, there's so much to keep up with. And if you just try to keep up with all of it, you're going to miss something.
Yeah, and it's wild how many people are like, well, we want a really advanced red team engagement. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, what's the scope? What are you guys kind of working with? And a lot of times the answers to most simple questions that would be like in a scoping questionnaire are, oh, we don't know, or we don't have a policy for that. Yeah, vendors just come in and out. We don't track them. So there's no physical security. There's no asset management. All of those stepping stones that would be in place, that would be inhibitors to me as a red teamer, are just not there. But the market is telling them that's what they need to be secure. And it's kind of a disservice. I mean, people are going to make money. People are going to spend money, but we could always do it a little better. We could be a little more protective of the people we're trying to help, not just try to take their wallet.
Great points. So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
I think my biggest thing I would want to touch on is if we could talk about community for a second.
Sure.
I've noticed this was kind of one of those things that really annoyed me while I was in. We noticed team to team, even branch to branch, it was even worse. Everyone's using different tools. Everyone's got a different procedure, different training. It's all different. If we're all doing things differently, if we're not all willing to talk, when it comes down to us having to actually defend, have to work together, it's not going to work, right? It won't happen. We can't. We're too different. I saw it while I was in, and it really bugged me. I thought it would be different when I got out, but it turns out it's even worse out here. People are facing the same exact threats every day. Like, I've run into it down here. A great example, I was talking with two different people that were protecting a local county organization. Two counties side by side. Their buildings were just a few miles apart, had never met each other, never even talked, exchanged emails or anything, but they face the same exact threat every day. They're using a lot of the same equipment. They're doing the same functionalities. They're protecting the same processes and people. Why wouldn't you talk? Why wouldn't you share tips like, hey, we're seeing a lot of this happening in our environments. We got this weird phishing email, just so you know, in case it comes at you too. Like, we really need to start building these circles of trust and building community within even if it's just your local areas. I'm not saying the whole US is going to end up connected. We've got things like DEF CON that are really cool to help make that happen, but it only really happens for a week or two a year, right? Then it kind of falls back off. Everybody's got their thing to do. We need to engage our local communities, and everyone from the guy that's protecting the local school system or the library up to your state, local government, your water, your power, like all of these different people, you're doing the same job. We're facing the same threats. We've got to talk. We've got to work together. And I would really urge people, if they're looking for a cause or looking for what's that next thing for them in this field, is to try and help with that. Just try and make a friend in a similar style business. See what you can do to help improve the people around you. Because if you can stop them from getting breached, you're raising the bar, right? You're raising the bar for everyone. Now it's making it that much harder for those threats to do what they need. They're spending more time, effort, and resources, and you're getting easier wins. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's best case scenario for us.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. So appreciate you taking time to join today. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's fun. I like doing these kind of things.
Well, it's good having you on, and I'm sure that folks can get some good out of this episode. So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, until next time, hopefully I'll get to catch you for more than a sparse moment at DEF CON next year.
Yeah, hopefully get to meet up for a little bit longer. So thanks again.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.